Hey friends, welcome back to OG Universe. Thanks for stopping by today. On the turntable, we're taking a look at Mcfarlane Toys DC Multiverse Deathstroke from the Batman Arkham Origins video game. Now this figure came out in 2020, so just when Mcfarlane got the license for DC, they started to come out with some pretty damn heavy-hitting figures. We got this guy, Red Hood, Thomas Wayne, Flashpoint Batman. We got some great figures in that first initial kind of second wave of figures. This figure, though, is very interesting. It has not been re-released. There's been no repaints, no gold label chase variants. But we just got this figure back in 2020, and that was it. So let's take a look at the packaging first before we delve into Deathstroke. So you do have this really nice render from the video game. You have the cross-sell. Now, this was a heavy cross-sell of the Dark Knight's metal figures. Like you got the Grim Knight, you got Murder Machine, but you got Azrael from the Curse of the White Knight, which is really cool. Then you got the Devastator, Dawnbreaker. So just looking at this a lineup of figures, it's damn impressive. There's some really awesome figures Mcfarlane was pumping out in that first year of having that DC license. Now you also got the trading card, which is the artwork on the back, and a display stand, and that's about it. But this Deathstroke, unfortunately, didn't come with any weapons. Just a sword. Didn't have the staff. So this is when that mandate from Warner Brothers came into effect, where we couldn't have any DC figures or DC characters with weapons, any guns, nothing like that. And it's so disappointing because Deathstroke, as you know, he has weapons besides a sword. He's got that bow staff, which would have been a nice inclusion, but he does carry armaments. He carries guns. It's part of his MO, right? So let's take a closer look at the figure. So the figure, this weapon here, this submachine gun, is just a repaint from the munitions pack, Series 1. I just put some silver accents on it just to give it a bit more pop to it. Now, he does have a trigger finger hand. Perfect for guns, but he didn't come with it. Now, I do have this battle staff, which Deathstroke does carry quite a bit. This is actually from a Marvel Select Gambit figure. I don't have the Gambit figure anymore. I have no idea what happened to it, but I do have the staff, and it fits really well into his hand and looks good. Now, the weapon of choice, of course, is that sword. Now, the sword was really cool. In some respects, it's a different kind of design on it. It's very high-tech looking, very nice, really sharp, but it just came with half a saber. As you can see here, it doesn't have a fully closed back. A lot of people complained about that. It just slots into a peg, actually, as you can see. And it's fully removable. So if you didn't want your Deathstroke to have any sort of sheath, you can pop that right out. So it just has a little strap there. So yeah, that's a disappointing sword for sure. But we take a look at the figure in more detail. One thing that really blew me away was that head sculpt. That head sculpt is absolutely amazing. The detail on the mask, the texture work all throughout the body armor, and just the way that skin tone looks in the eye. Man, that's really impressive. Very well done. Now he does have a handgun, which is not removable from the holster. It's just a sculpted detail. Now, he does have some really nice paintwork. The orange is a bright metallic orange. It looks really nice. Now, the blue could use a bit of a wash to bring out so much of this detail. My camera's settings are a little brighter, so it really does bring out a lot of the detail. But in hand, it's very muted. It's a very dark navy blue. But he does have all these pouches. The texture on the mask, as you can see, it's really well done. Really kind of segmented armor plating throughout the entire figure. He's loaded. He's got the grenade straps all around him, pouches to days, armor everywhere. You know, it's a really well sculpted figure. It has a really nice aesthetic. It looks super sharp. I mean, this is Deathstroke, without a doubt. First glance, yep, this Deathstroke. Now, this Deathstroke will look, I think, really good in your DC Universe, your Extended Universe, movie figures, Justice League Zack Snyder, the Dark Knight trilogy. He definitely would fit into that kind of look. He's got a more realistic look to him, but he also fits into your comic book line and shelf as well. Now, it is disappointing that he doesn't come with any guns, but like if you have that munitions pack, you can add some more weapons to him, and you're fine there. So let's take a look at some of the articulation this older G1 figure had. Now, you remember if you saw my video on Azrael from Curse of the White Knights, he just had the single jointed elbows. This one does have the double joint, which is nice to see, but we'll talk about that in articulation. So the head is pretty stiff. It doesn't have much movement, a little bit of side attitude. Can't really look up at all. Down, very minimal, unfortunately. Your shoulder articulation, it goes up about that far. These pauldrons, they are a softer material, but all these straps and everything just inhibits the articulation, unfortunately. He does have double jointed elbows, a bicep cut, ball joints at the wrist. He does have pretty well hidden ball joints because of his arm gauntlets here. And on this side, again, not too bad, a little bit better than this one, surprisingly. But he does have that shoulder movement. Now for ab articulation. Now this was really interesting. He doesn't have that diaphragm cut. He just has a ball joint segmented into his abdomen, but it doesn't give a lot of motion. He doesn't have the squishmallow effect like that Vampire Green Lantern did, but you can tell there's not much going on. This is a harder rubber, so he doesn't have much in the way of movement back or forward. Not much going on there at all, unfortunately. Now the legs are a bit of a contention at this point as well. He does have movement going up, but unfortunately that's as far as it goes. He has virtually no movement in his leg. Just with the armor plating and the design of the sculpt, it does really limit his articulation. He does have double jointed knees, and they're ratcheted as well. It's nice and stiff. You do have the ball joints in the ankle hidden by all this shin guard. He has the pivot ankle rocker, toe articulation, and everything else going on. So it looks really good. Aesthetically, articulation's a little bit lacking, unfortunately. But it's still overall a very nice figure. We're just gonna put the sword back in, and as you can see, just slides into that sheath. And yeah, I don't like that open back. It doesn't look very good at all. Put him back on his stand. Now, Deathstroke, he's been one of my favorite characters. I really enjoyed him since, well, I think he first appeared back in the 80s in the Teen Titans comic book from George Perez and Marv Wolfman, which was, you know, something I picked up later on when I started reading comics. And I just loved the way Deathstroke was portrayed as this badass villain. He had such an interesting, compelling storyline and background with his son, daughter, you know, everything going on with them. Just a really cool figure, cool character, one of my favorites. So let's bring in some other characters to do a little size comparison, and we'll check him out and how he holds up against some of the newer technology for articulation and advancements Mcfarlane has made since the initial release. Here we go with the Bizarro figure, Bizarro Superman. A little bit of a modification on this guy. We extended the torso, changed the neck peg, got rid of that S curl that was on the top of his head there. And it's nice to see these two guys still look really good together. A G1 from 2020. This one, I believe, is released in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And these two look really nice. And they still compare well, you know. This sculpt still holds up. And then we'll take a look at a Batman figure from Rebirth. Now, this is a smaller stature Batman. Unfortunately, the sculpt just could have been a little bit bigger proportionally. But it's still one of my favorites because he's just really fun to pose around, and he can get in some great poses. Articulation is just solid. Just wish he was a bit of a bigger body buck compared to this Deathstroke. You know, there's quite a big height difference. And still with the buck too. It's a very slender Batman. This is definitely a beefier Deathstroke, fully armored up. And well, let's hope he doesn't fall down here. There we go. And then we'll compare him with another kind of an earlier release as well, but this is the repainted version of the Green Lantern Hal Jordan. So this one definitely had that squishmallow abdomen. This is the DC versus Vampires Hal Jordan. Didn't have it on this. Like, this is still really solid plastic, but it just doesn't have that articulation point. This one does, but man, they went squishmallow with it. And these two look really good together as well. You can see, I'm pretty sure it's a Deceased comic book line where I'm picturing a cover where we saw Deathstroke, I think Red Hood, and a couple other not villains, but heroes, with kind of gun-toting heroes. taken on the zombies. Was a series that I never picked up on. Deceased Unkillables, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, the cover was really good, but it's just, I'm not into the zombie thing. But this vampire, yeah, I might be tracking down those DC versus Vampire comics for sure. Now, I want to put them with another G1 Mcfarlane Toys figure, and this is the Flashpoint Thomas Wayne. This is the unmasked variant. I do have the masked variant. I'm going to be doing a full review on that. I'm really excited to open that figure up finally. I never opened it because I had this guy, and I thought, oh, it's pretty much the same figure. There's no point of opening it, but I'm definitely going to open it up and enjoy it and review it for you guys as well. Again, these two guys look really cool together as well. It's very interesting, the earlier Mcfarlane Toys figures. I think they were, I don't know, a bit more taking chances. They're making characters that people really wanted to see, and it was just like, okay, let's put out some of these really cool characters. Deathstroke, Thomas Wayne, Red Hood, all these great versions of them too. Really great stylizations and costumes. And I think nowadays it's almost gone to the point of they're kind of stepping away from that really cool aesthetic in certain characters and just making characters that, you know, we've had a lot of Batmans. We've had a lot of different versions of Superman as well. And some of them are fantastic. Some of the Batmans, I don't think there's been any duds in my opinion, but I'd like to see some of these more, you know, kind of popular core characters that have that really strong following, but really don't have the representation in action figures. Like, we haven't seen much Thomas Wayne. Now we're getting some more Thomas Wayne in the Superpowers line as well. But Deathstroke does not get that figure attention that I think he should, because he is a prominent character, especially with the recent Dark Crisis series, who's a main component of that. You know, we had the Shadow War as well with Batman and Deathstroke, which was phenomenal. I was just thinking they could make so many cool figures out of that entire series, but they're just kind of like stepping cautiously, I think, for certain things, where they've done some great interpretations. Some of the Flashpoint stuff has been pretty interesting, you know, the Speed Metal stuff, but I want to see a bit more Deathstroke. I want to see a bit more of those underdog characters that we haven't seen them very much in represented figures. Still, even a Vigilante figure from Peacemaker, or a brand new Peacemaker based more off of some comic book versions like that. Peacemaker Tries Hard comics, something like that would be really cool. Sorry, going off on a little tangent here, but I'd like to see a bit more things like that. And then we'll put them with a couple more figures. Let's take a look with the Joker from Infinite Frontier. Now, I really like this Joker. It's very stylized. It's very kind of a sexy Joker with his hair and the way he's designed here, but he's very well done. And I like the way these two look as well. They look very interesting together. And then we'll put them up with a few other figures. I'm going to put them up with, of course, my favorite Batman, the Jim Lee Hush blue variant. Now, these two look really good together. Still, 2023 figure, 2020 figure. And that's a real testament to how good the sculpt was on this figure and how well it's designed. Unfortunately, it does have a couple flaws, but overall, I think it's a phenomenal version of Deathstroke. I think I really won off because that Arkham Origins game doesn't get any love. We don't see any designs from that game. It's unfortunate because that Batman from Arkham Origins was really cool, very heavily padded, really armored up. So it would have been nice to see a 2-pack redone with this or some other kind of variation of Batman, but who knows. Mcfarlane does like to go kind of deep, do some deep cuts and some figures, but man, hitting some more Deathstrokes I think would be awesome. There you go, guys. This is a figure that came out in 2020. If you can track it down, I would suggest you go for it. Maybe buy that munitions pack to add some weapons to him, because I think he is pretty bare bones without any other accessories. But it's still, the sculpt is fantastic. If you're a fan of Deathstroke like I am, you definitely want to add him to your collection. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about Deathstroke. Do you have this figure? Do you want to see more Deathstroke? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.